Welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet. And today's episode is going to be an update on the Donald Trump indictments that seem to be growing rapidly. And now a grand jury in Georgia has indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 allies on state charges stemming from his efforts to overturn his 2020 electoral defeat in Georgia. The 41-count indictment is the fourth criminal case that Trump is now facing. The indictment returned by Fulton County grand jury includes 13 charges against Trump, which now gives him a grand total of 91 charges in 4 criminal cases in 4 different jurisdictions, 2 federal and 2 state cases. So as much of a failure as Donald Trump actually is, he's in a heap of shit right now. That's for certain. I mean, who knew breaking the law had repercussions, right? So what do you guys think about this?
Well, I think Trump is in deep dog shit. He just keeps on racking up the charges. He's been a criminal at large for several years now. We don't know just how far back his criminal history dates, but I'm sure there are even more investigations that are ongoing that might uncover some more. But let's talk about these most recent charges because, again, this goes to the heart of our democracy in terms of trying to steal our election once he lost. He couldn't accept that he lost, and he wanted to find the 11,000 votes that he lost by in Georgia of all states, which had been Republican bastion for God knows how long. He lost Georgia and he just couldn't believe it. And so he put a pressure campaign on, the governor there to quote unquote find him the votes, even if those votes didn't in fact exist because people didn't vote for him. And so basically, he's essentially asking the governor to overturn the results of the election there on his behalf. And that is fundamentally wrong. It's criminal. It's against our democracy. And I'm just so glad that, these charges were brought not only against him, but against his whole criminal enterprise that operated in trying to solicit these votes on his behalf. And that includes Rudy Giuliani and, thankfully, Mark Meadows, who was his chief of staff, who, should be ashamed of himself. He was a congressman. And, for him to, just stoop this low after, he served as a member of Congress, he should know better. And, he was part of the people that were sent to Congress to represent the people and to protect our democracy. He was an elected official, and shame on him for fucking betraying us like this.
For real. It's mind-boggling, really, the more you look at it, because 91 charges. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You would think, though, in a realistic mindset, that this dude's serious about running again. How? How could he?
Well, no, he's not serious about running. He is running.
Well, that's what I mean. He's going to do it regardless, but like...
No, he's not going to do it. He is doing it.
Right.
He's running for president.
The dude is basically a felon at this point, and it's like...
Hold on. He's not convicted yet. We gotta still have the trials. The trials are still several months away.
That's true. But 91 charges? Maybe I can see some of them maybe not being the case, but let's be realistic here. You know what I mean?
But
we know what we know.
Like, in all likelihood, I mean, the more charges that he racks up in more jurisdictions, the less likely he is to be able to get out of them. Now, there are federal charges, which if he wins the presidency, I guess he could theoretically try to pardon himself. That's never been done before. I'm sure the founding fathers never envisioned, a president being able to pardon himself. But with this Supreme Court, who knows what the fuck they'll allow. But, the state charges from Georgia and New York, presidents can't pardon state charges. Only governors can. And it seems that, the governor of Georgia isn't really keen on Trump, since he received the pressure to overturn the election there, and
Right.
obviously refused to do so. And we heard him do this on the call. Like, we've heard the audio tape of him calling the
Oh,
governor,
yeah.
asking him to find the votes.
There's
And
literal proof of that. Like, there's no getting out of that.
right, and it's not just that call, but a whole pressure campaign done by him and his associates. So this included, just gathering up fake slates of electors, and just getting fake people to pose as members of the Electoral College that weren't really members of the Electoral College, to say, hey, Trump won the state, we're just going to vote for Trump. Like, how the fuck was that going to happen?
Right.
But if they showed up there and did it, and I guess that would throw our country into some constitutional turmoil. It's just unbelievable the lengths that this ex-president went to keep his presidency. I guess he was president at the time.
Because for him, it's all about just trying to win. I got to win. It's me, me, me. You know what I mean? It's always the way it is with this guy. He spelled America M-E. It just reminds me of like a toddler that can't take losing. You know what I mean? So he literally tried to do like everything he can, regardless to, you know what I mean? Whether we have factual proof of it, which we do or not, just to try to win, because it was all the competition to him. It was all about winning.
Well, he lost. And the
that's
sooner
the
he
important
admits
part.
that, the better.
Yeah, I agree. He did lose, and he made it seem like he won. He even pretended to act like he lost when he won the first time in 2016.
Right.
And then won. It was almost like a surprise to him.
I was just going to bring that up.
The sad thing is, it's the public opinion of him. He is still not where he needs to be in public opinion. There are still people that swear he's the next coming of Christ, if anything. The image he's still portraying, he's never gonna, stop denying and everything to that extent. He's always gonna lie and say that, oh, it's not me, it's them, it's a witch hunt. They're out for me. Look how many charges they're trying to bring against me, and it all is gonna end up after the first verdict of whatever he goes into first. Because I don't know if the Judge Cannon one is going to go up first, or if the Georgia one is going to get hyped up first, because he's already starting with the judges on that. There's definitely going to be a crunch time, a pressure time, when all these litigations against him start to get processed, and you start hearing. I don't know if we're going to hear anything until after the fact, because there are going to be people in the courtrooms that are going to take notes. But if they do make it public, we're going to start seeing this live, and it's going to be like the OJ case. People are going to be glued to it. It's going to be good for press, even though that's not necessarily what it's going to be. But it's definitely going to come down to that first verdict. If he's found not guilty in that first verdict, that's going to give him a huge pump, and it's going to be dangerous, because then he's going to try to get elected on that. And then that's just going to be, he needs to not be allowed to run, because technically he's a criminal. It's not like we don't know he's not a criminal.
That's why I said that before about the felon, because we kind of know with certain things, maybe not everything, but yeah.
I mean, that's the sad part, is we know, and we're just allowing him to run the gauntlet. And we need to, because it's innocent or proven guilty for everybody. I understand that, but we know he's guilty.
Well, I was going to say, the interesting thing to know, too, is like, out of all of these charges that are brought, like we were saying before, none of these like hearings actually happen. So if some people actually think, oh, well, this is just the next attempt or something, the other ones aren't gone. They're still there. That's why there's a total of 91 charges now. You know what I mean? So there was no hearing. So this still has we're still teeing off pretty much, while not only more indictments are coming in, but more information still pouring in. You know what I mean? So this is still fresh.
Yeah, I mean, there are trials that are pending. in order for him to be convicted of crimes, he's entitled to a trial. We don't just say you're charged with something and then you have to go to prison. No, you have a trial where, a jury is going to get to decide whether or not Trump is guilty or innocent of these crimes, of all 91 crimes. And so they're going to have jurors in both the federal and state cases decide his fate. And the more charges that he racks up, the less likely it is that he can, get out of this. Like, it seems to me that at least some of these charges will stick. And prosecutors in at least one, if not all of the cases, are going to present evidence to the juries that is irrefutable. And unless you're like paid off by Trump or, so far gone in terms of your delusion in the sense that Trump is innocent or is unassailable, or you just don't care that he's a criminal because you hate Democrats so much or whatever, unless there's some monkey wrench like that, I just don't see a way for Trump to get out of all 91 charges. And it's likely that, if anyone else was guilty of crimes like this, such as, trying to start an insurrection or trying to steal an election, like, if anyone else was charged with this, first of all, they wouldn't be free roaming around. Not to mention, like, the leaking of national secrets, like, or the stealing of national secrets, classified documents. I mean, Trump yelled for years to lock Hillary up. Well, this motherfucker stole documents and refused to give them back. Like,
right.
We know, we knew he had them. The government said give them back, and he said no.
And then he tried to move them and hide them. Remember?
right. But like, he said no.
Right.
No,
imagine that.
I'm not going to give you back the classified documents that I took. No.
Right.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, anyone else would have been fucking thrown in prison immediately.
Right? I mean, look what happened.
How the fuck are you going to say no?
Yeah.
The government asking for their classified documents back. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is. It really is, man. I mean, look what happened with that case with that, like, ex-soldier or something. I forget the full story, but apparently he leaked some kind of...
It was an Air Force kid.
Yeah, he leaked some information over some kind of chat website or something. And within like a week, that dude was finished. But Trump, he's still free, walking around. Doesn't that strike as a little odd to you?
Well, I mean, it's a very complex thing to deal with someone who's even an ex-president, because number one, he has a lot of political power. Even though he's not in power, he has a lot of political power and a lot of people that are upset that he's charged and will be upset if he's convicted. We saw their wrath on January 6th after the election. So you have to be very careful about how you go about it. That doesn't mean that you give him privileges that other defendants don't have, but it definitely is indicative of that we have to apply some sort of caution before approaching Trump, because he is basically, he's a ticking time bomb with his supporters.
Speaking of his supporters, the only thing I still can't quite understand when it comes to them is like, they're like even Mark was saying, they refer to him like he's like the next Christ or something. And I'm like, the irony is everything about this guy is so not what it seems, especially when you're going to look at it through like a religious sense or something. You know what I mean? There's nothing religious about this guy. He got 3 different wives, multiple kids, doesn't go to church, calls himself a Christian. You know what I mean? Doesn't read the Bible. He was asked live what his favorite verses were. He kept ducking and dodging the question because he doesn't know any verses or anything. So, like, you know what I'm saying? And plus, the most important thing above all is, like, I can't understand why a middle-class person would even care about someone like this guy, considering the fact that this guy doesn't even know what the struggle is. He never has, and he never will. Well, I mean, we're going to find out as these trials unfold and stuff, because it may not be a very happy ending in the end. But like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, somehow he was able to almost brainwash an entire like group of people to just believe whatever the hell he says to be true, and somehow his word is better than facts, which isn't the case.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the verdict has to be guilty, because if it's not guilty, the public sway for him is going to bring out those people who are going to be like, yeah, look, see, it's all a hoax. He should be innocent of all charges, so on and so forth. And then overall, of all these cases, he has to get convicted of a majority of them. If he's not convicted of a majority of them, it's definitely he's going to roll with, oh, it's a witch hunt. Look how many things they had to throw at me to try to get me in jail. It's never going to end with him. He's always going to play the martyr when he's the one that's doing the thing. It's just going to be difficult, because then you're going to have to try to convince people that, he is not what you think he is. He's a liar, and you've taken the bait. People would rather believe the lie than to face the truth.
Yeah, the inconvenient truth. That's actually big facts. That really is, man. And it's sad, too, because it's really like, it's amazing how you could be a false prophet to people that never produce results, and they still mindlessly just follow. Because the reason why I even phrase it like that is we already had 4 years of Trump, and I can't name one positive thing that affects a regular citizen in this country. Now, if you were a millionaire or a billionaire or something, you got the biggest tax break this country's ever given you, pretty much. But for the average Joe, no, you got nothing. Remember Trump Care? It might as well have just came with a body bag. You didn't get nothing there. And then remember he was going to defeat ISIS in 30 days. Remember that one? Yeah, that didn't happen either. You know what I mean? So it's just all these made up fairy tale stories.
Hold on. I'll give him credit. He did oversee, or he was president when the leader of ISIS was killed. I'll give him that. He did not get in the way of our military taking out the leader of ISIS.
All right. Well, I guess you're right. That could be looked at as a good thing. But as far as the false prophet issues, like I was saying, he hasn't produced on any of them. Remember, healthcare was supposed to be cheap and better. Yeah, that didn't happen.
What do you mean? No, it wasn't. He didn't have a plan.
Exactly. And then when they did throw some bullshit like two-page thing together.
I just remembered. When he was running his whole healthcare plan, if you asked him, he was asked about it.
Something terrific.
We're going to repeal Obamacare and replace it, right? What are you going to replace it with? His answer? Something terrific.
Right?
That was his whole healthcare plan.
Something
terrific. And 4 years later, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Nada. You know what I'm saying? It's like the proof is in the pudding. Like, we already been there. We've seen this for what it is. You know what I mean? So, like, you really want 4 more years of that? Just enriching the rich and giving you false ideas that never follow through? Because that's where that would be heading. Because I'm going by the information we already know. You know what I mean? This is not shocking. And it wasn't shocking technically for me then either, because I knew none of that was going to happen. Because like Brooke was just saying, there was no substance. It's just words and descriptions. It's, something terrific. That's not a plan. What's that? You know, that's just bullshit. That's called dodging. Like, but Mark does bring a very good point up about him trying to probably also use the situation he's under to try to fuel himself a little bit with it. Now, you would think 91 friggin' charges, that's not really how you're going to use that as fuel. But like Mark was saying, if there's a couple of these, he starts getting out scot-free or something, then he's going to start gloating about it. And then you're right. Then here comes the witch hunt and all that bullshit talk and stuff again. But like Brooke was saying, I agree. 91 charges. We got more probably coming in. This is just what we know as to right now. I don't see him getting away with all of that. I'm sorry, but like there's just no way, man. Yeah, like that's a crazy astronomical number, and it's not even really the grand total yet. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to get 12 jurors to agree to convict someone, and you have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. But number one, there is a lot of evidence in all these cases. Some of the evidence was offered by Trump himself. It's recorded and in public.
Right.
So, that's definitely something. But it's just, for all these cases, there are things that can go wrong. And, it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to go to prison. He's going to apply or try to apply public pressure to people who are, set to testify against him, or judges or prosecutors. He's already threatened Bragg in New York. He tweeted out a picture of him holding a baseball bat next to a picture of, Bragg. And it's like, yeah, you don't threaten the prosecution of your case like that. Like, what the fuck?
Right?
Like, how, like...
For real.
I think something was mentioned, like he mentioned something about his daughter, or like, what the fuck kind of shit is that? Like, if he was anyone else, he would be in prison now.
But that's what leads me to my problem, because like,
if you threaten,
well, no one's above the law, so why is it even allowed?
In jail pending trial.
He's without a doubt in jail.
Well,
like,
okay, so this is what I wanted to go back to earlier. It's a complicated thing to deal with an ex-president, because number one, he has a lot of political power, which was what I talked about. Number two, it's complicated because we've never dealt with this before. The president of the United States and ex-presidents are very high-profile people. And they have Secret Service around them 24/7. They're some of the most sought after people in the world in terms of both radical political people and also crazy people want to, harm them. And so it's a very difficult situation to deal with security wise. Like, when you put a president in prison or an ex-president in prison, what do the Secret Service do? Do they, are they in the cell with him? It's a complicated issue, and I don't think our system was really prepared to deal with, this situation. But we're going to have to, because the fact of the matter is he committed crimes. Whether he'll be convicted of all 91 or just one, I don't see him getting away with all of them. And a lot of these charges come with some serious time. And if we're applying the law fairly, he's going to have to serve time in prison.
As he should.
Whether that's a country club prison where he gets to golf every day or something, I don't know. But
yeah, right. Like Martha Stewart kind of thing.
But if convicted, he should not be a free man for the crimes that he's committed.
I 100% agree.
You need to establish a precedent that just because you're a president does not give you free rein to break the law. It does not give you the power to abuse your position and then not be held accountable for it. This is saying once and for all, from the federal government to the state government, we're not going to put up with this. You may, while you're president, be able to get away with it because of Department of Justice precedent and spineless pussy politicians who support you in Congress.
Just suckle to the teat.
But you're not going to get away with it forever, because the law will investigate and catch up with you.
Right. You could run, but you're only going to be able to run so far. And let's keep in mind that, as much of a scumbag Trump is for everything he's done, he's got plenty of other people that have been thrown on this list too that are also in a heap of shit. Like Giuliani's name's here, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, Kenneth John Chesbrough.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the list goes on and on and on.
Like Mark Meadows, like, was the chief of staff and also a congressman, as I said before. Like, fuck him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, keep
Fuck
it
it.
short and sweet, right?
Well, I would hope that with the amount of evidence that they have against Trump, that this it's almost like Dora the Explorer level of evidence. It's just like a criminal has a record. Does this guy have a record? You know what I'm saying? It feels like that's where it should be. Like we have all this evidence against him, and Rook's right. He's definitely going to get hit with something. It's just
Right.
is whether he's hit with the majority of it or not is the bigger question. And I just hope that our faith in the way this government and the justice system is run, that justice does prevail in this situation, because that would set the precedent that nobody's above the law.
Right.
Even if it doesn't go that way, then we're looking at like a new monarchy.
Basically.
He's going to want to run for 2, 3, 4 terms, make me the permanent president until I die. And that's what I see in the future with him.
No, I definitely hear you with that. That's yeah. Like you were saying, if this outcome somehow does tend to fold the other way, the bottom line is this really, if you think about it, the integrity of this country, let alone what it stands for and the Constitution. There's a lot riding on this, and people I think kind of realize too. You know what I mean? Because like if somehow he were to just be able to do all this, start an insurrection, ask for votes that don't exist, and what I mean, just literally run this like his own bank and circus, more or less. It's really gonna show the world that we've taken many steps backward. You know what I mean? We're not what we were, and like you said perfectly before, nobody is above the law, and that would prove that otherwise wrong. So when there is some substantial evidence, which for a lot of this it seems like there is, you would think that this is leaning towards, lockup time for him. You know what I mean? But we won't know nothing until these trials occur.
He's also an old man. He could die before he sees the inside of a prison cell. And mark my words, if he does, you're going to hear the conspiracy theorists that its supporters come out and say, "Oh, he was martyred," and
right,
like that's a serious concern of mine. That he won't even make it to the end of a trial, and the stress might kill him, but the poison that he's both harnessed and unleashed in this country is going to continue long past when Trump leaves this earth.
Oh yeah. And the thing too that I think a lot of people don't realize with this clown is like he'll say whatever he wants to say to make him not only look good, but to make him look innocent. But when you look at all this information here and it's just piling in by like the day at this point, I don't know how you could look at these factual documents and let alone some of the things he's literally said himself that is considered evidence, and look at it and say, oh, well, it's bullshit. He didn't do it. It's like, really? Like, could you be that gullible or just that dim-witted, like, at this point? Because, like, I don't get that. Like, do you? Is there something I'm missing, maybe? Like,
no, they just don't care. They don't.
That's
They've already
probably
made
a
up their
good
minds.
answer.
They just don't care.
Right? But there's nothing that's going to be positive for that person with that mentality. You see what I'm saying? Like, they don't care, but it's not going to benefit you regardless of whether you care or not. Yeah. Like, so you're trying to support someone that literally is, committing crimes left and right, who doesn't give a flying fuck about you. And if it was the roles reversed, your ass would be in jail by now. You know what I mean?
No,
so it's just so backwards.
This country is it's borderline suicidal. Like this country just doesn't care.
And that's a big problem because, like, as strong as this nation actually is overall, I hate to say it like this, but usually they say the only way you could take something like that down is from within. That's exactly what Trump has been doing.
Well, it's not just Trump. It's his supporters.
Right. Because they're the ones that actually carried out the insurrection, too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like Trump marched there himself, even though he said he was going to.
But it's like we can't allow this kind of behavior and this stuff to go on because it's just gonna poison us more. You know what I mean? The outcome is not gonna be something great if we can't get over crap like this or handle it correctly.
I don't know if it can be repaired at this point.
Well,
Even if Trump is convicted, even if Trump goes away, there will always be that doubt in those people's minds. And I think there was things said at this point from one person to another, not being specific, just a generalization. It's really driven people to divide. And I think it took a while for this country to heal from this because people just not gonna let it go. It's gonna be the biggest, widest believed conspiracy theory ever that Trump was wrongly convicted, and whether he dies before or after he's put in jail is another thing. But he's gonna be made a martyr for the wrong reasons.
But see, that's true. But my problem too is like the reason why I think some of these people are so still on board with this circus or whatnot too is because of the information they're choosing to retain and watch. So if you're a right-wing nut that only watches like OAN and like Fox News, what all they're going to be hearing about is probably Hunter Biden's laptop. So the details about all these indictments that are piling up, they're probably not really educated on any of it because they're trying to hide it. You see what I'm saying? So that probably also is adding a little catalyst to the whole situation, if you think about it.
No, it's not so much that they're trying to hide it, it's that they're enabling it.
Right.
They spin it to make it sound like it's not his fault. It's that he's doing it because they're forcing him to do it, or it's a conspiracy. He never did it. These media companies will always try to spin it in his favor. That's not to say that the other media companies don't spin it in the other favor, because they do.
Right, but misinformed is really the word that comes to mind in the end, because like if you're gonna see this detailed information and choose to ignore it, that's just ignorant. But if they're not even going to broadcast it and they're just going to talk about some other bullshit that's nowhere near as important as what this is, you know what I mean? Then it's like you're not informing your audience about the reality of the situation.
Let's look at it this way. You're growing up and you're rooting for your favorite New York team, whether it's the Mets or whether it's the Yankees. And you say to yourself, I'm going to invest myself in, let's say, the Yankees. And then the Yankees turned out to have done all this shady shit. And, now they're starting to get looked at for it. Are you going to believe what people are saying about the Yankees, or are you going to believe what people are saying to defend the Yankees? Whether it's true or not in your mind, most likely you're going to try to defend your favorite team because that's who you're invested in. That's who you believe to be your clandestine group. The way is like I have a guy at my job who's not necessarily a Trump believer, but he is a government is hiding something from us believer, meaning that even the liberal side is doing things to put us in a bad position. It's not just the right hand, it's the left hand as well. And they always juggle back and forth. Look what I have over here. Look what I have over here. And
I have something I could add to this.
Some truth that is the case. It's just that our government right now is not doing the things they need to do to better, the country as a whole. They're doing what they want to do to better their pockets. Now, whether they do it in a way that really hurts people or whether they do it in a way that's very illegal, or some other way. It's just that's where those people believe. And so they're more likely to believe Trump because he's not necessarily part of the political system, which is, to hide things from you and do things that, don't necessarily benefit you as an individual. That's what I'm saying. That's where a belief is, and that's a big belief in what I see.
I mean, I could see too, he was saying that like he doesn't trust the government, period. And that's understandable, to be honest. But the way I always say you got to look at the bigger picture, especially with us, because we only have two parties, just the Democrats and the Republicans, really. You have to look at not at what they're saying. You have to look at what they're doing. That's the most important part of the entire equation. The reason why I say that is because sure, while Democrats may not be the brightest pack in the whole group, they are still, from what I'm seeing, the party of the people in a sense. When Obama was president, what did he do? He gave us health care. When Biden is now here, what did he do? We have now an infrastructure bill that passed. And what else did he try to do for many, many years at this point now? He was trying to add a student loan forgiveness for the federal loans, that is, so students can get some of that money back so they can, not have shackles on their feet for the next 15 to 20 years, struggling to either try to find work or even a place to live because the bank won't give them, an opportunity with that much debt straggling along behind them. So you see what I'm saying? So I don't know. The way I see, especially in recent times, I see when Democrats are in office, I see the unemployment rate usually at its lowest. And I usually see proposals that actually will affect everyday citizens and not just the rich. You see what I'm saying? So, maybe years ago, you could have said something different, but what more important time is there to talk about than right now? So, what I just brought up was literally just in the past, 10, 15 years or whatnot. But I can tell you this too, if you were born in 1980, since then till now, they have never seen, this is actually factual, a time period where the Republican unemployment rate was actually lower than the Democrats going from the 80s till now. That counts both Bushes in there, that counts Clinton in there, that counts Obama in there, that counts Trump in there, and now Biden. And that's about it. That's about it. So when you go by the facts and you go by the numbers, they don't lie. Words lie and shit they spew for their mouths. You see what I'm saying? That's the way I see it.
Well, I mean, it's a conversation of whether you believe it or not. I would say, for me personally, I think I see good things happening. While it's not directly affecting me at the moment, maybe it'll affect me down the line. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's just trying to see how things unfold as we move along.
Right. And also in adding to the effects, another thing I just thought of you can throw into that is the whole climate change issue. I mean, Democrats have been talking about that for decades now. It wasn't only until recently that Republicans started thinking, wow, you know what? This might be a real thing. Remember, it was a hoax before and it's bullshit this, and you know what I mean? And then actions were slowly, but eventually unraveling because of that. Came along a pretty good way since then, especially with solar energy and electric vehicles now. And I don't remember the exact date, but I remember Biden with his idea was he wanted to, I don't know if it was within the next 10 years or whatnot, but he wanted to try to almost weed way out of fossil fuel. Now, I find that kind of hard to believe, to be honest, but it would be interesting if it did happen, though. It would be a step for the future. So, I don't know. All I see when I see Republican presidencies is tax cuts for the rich, and that's it. Basically, anything. It doesn't affect the everyday citizen in a positive way. I can't name one Republican piece of legislation since I've been on this planet that was passed that actually affects my life in a positive way. So, and I'm just an average everyday citizen. I'm no family inherited rich kid or none of that. You know what I mean? That's not here. So I don't know. This is just the way I see it. What do you guys think?
And the same thing could be said about all the Trump supporters. That's how they perceive it. They perceive it as
but that's that's where I'm talking about the false hope. Because if they actually think Trump did something good for them, I want to know what it is. Because I don't know what it is and how it affects their life. See what I'm saying? Healthcare. Obama passed that. That gave millions of people affordable medical coverage. What did Trump do that was equivalent to something like that? See what I'm saying? Yeah, nothing. You can't name anything. It's nothing exists.
All right. Well, it's not about logic. It's not about fact.
You're right.
It's basically about what team you support.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I feel like there's a lot of people that might not realize it, but they may be on the wrong team. You know what I mean?
Well, if your team is based on xenophobia and racism, then you might not be on the wrong team if you're on the Republican team, because that seems to be what they like fomenting. If you are a bigot and you have problems with gay people, like
Their diversity.
right, then you might be on the right team if you're supporting Trump and the Republicans.
But even on the financial sense, because like the tax cuts only go to the rich. Those little like.
No, let's be clear. They do not only go to the rich. They favor the rich, but they do not. They go to everyone or most people, but they are able to sell them to Trump's mass supporters because you can get this little bit of money, and with that you give away a whole lot of money to wealthy people.
Right, so they see like this little sliver, and then the wealthy gets the whole pie, if anything.
Indeed.
Yeah, so that was the trade-off. They get a little sliver, and then the rich get the whole pie.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow. That's an interesting deal. That's an interesting trade. Wow. Talk about the balance beam. That's a little one-sided, huh?
Well, it's made to seem like they're getting something. Oh, look what we did for you.
And they're not. That's the funny part. And that's our show for this week. We will keep you updated on all of Donald Trump's indictments. Strange Planet will have new episodes on YouTube every Friday. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.